The latest data from Stats SA shows South Africa's unemployment rate fell for a second successive quarter to 31.9% in the fourth quarter of last year, down from 32.1% in the previous quarter. This marked the lowest jobless rate since the third quarter of 2023, as the number of unemployed individuals decreased by 20,000. At the same time, employment rose by 132,000 and the labor force increased by 112,000. For more on this, we are joined by Christie Viljoen. He's a Senior Economist from PwC. Christie, thank you so much for joining us on Point. Welcome news, obviously, for the fourth quarter of last year, but still considerably high. And some will obviously say that December is a time where we see a lot of seasonal jobs. Could this be the reason for the jobs that we see created and that have eased the unemployment rate in the last quarter of last year?
This is a good news and a bad news number. A lot of economic data these days is looking better, but still we have to keep that context of what's really happening. The unemployment rate is coming down. It's similar to what we saw about 2 years ago, but actually it's probably one of our best numbers since COVID. So very happy with that. We created about 350,000 jobs last year, which is great news, better than could be expected with economic growth. But yes, fourth quarter numbers are often seasonal. We know that with holiday spending, there's more jobs in retail, accommodation, hospitality, etc. And then when we get to the first quarter, those numbers get adjusted again as some of those temporary jobs end. But for me at the moment, as we head into the budget speech, where we have to think about tax revenue and those things, taxes on personal income, this is a good signal, something that rounds off the 2024 data that tells us 2025 could actually be a good year from a jobs perspective.
Yeah. Another encouraging set of numbers that I saw in this, numbers that was released by Stats SA, is that the number of youth unemployment has slightly come down from 60% to 59%, rather, from 60%. Am I celebrating too early to see that there's a needle moving when it comes to youth unemployment, which has concerned us for a very long time?
Again, a good number whenever you see that youth number coming down, because that is really a big challenge for us. So I'm very happy. But again, some of that would be seasonal jobs. And we know in the first quarter of the year, lots more young people enter the labor market because they would have finished with high school, college, university, whatever their tertiary training might be. So the trick is always to understand the first quarter numbers. I know it's only a few months away, but I think there is quite optimism about that because we're looking at much stronger economic growth this year than last year. So I'm going to hold thumbs that the good news continues and that we can get that youth number lower still.
Yeah. To what extent do you think that this will see changes in employment programs from government tomorrow as the minister announces the raft of measures that will help to stabilize the economy? And how effective have they been thus far?
Well, we certainly can't relax on any of the government programs. Yes, when the unemployment rate comes down, that's good news, but it's still so very high. We still have one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the world. So I'm expecting government in the budget speech to say, we are continuing with all our employment programs, all the incentives we have in place, all the drives, all of the policy plans, because the battle is not won, most certainly not. We need to get this economy growing much faster, and with all the possible government programs we need to get more jobs, get people into jobs, formal jobs, well-paying, sustainable jobs. That's what we're aiming for 2025.
Yeah. Christie, our economics editor, Tsepo Mungwai, spoke to some of those that are discouraged work seekers and how they just sit and do nothing all day. We're definitely losing the war on this one, aren't we?
Yes, I mean, that group of discouraged workers, it's basically people that are willing and able to work, but they've given up on finding a job. Several millions of them. Let's be honest, we are aware of these people. Many of them are very young, people that have never had a proper job, that will probably never have a proper job. And those are the people being failed by an economy that is just growing way too slowly. If we can get this economy growing by 2-3%, that's how we absorb more of those young people. And I mean, I can't really say something to someone that is that despondent, living in an area where there are no opportunities. Those opportunities need to come from cooperation between government, private sector, labor, community organizations. It's all about working together. And it's something that the new government, the GNU, is doing well at, but we need more progress. We need more results on the ground.
Yeah. Still with those people who are discouraged, to what extent can starting small businesses and entering the entrepreneurship market actually cushion them and for them to have something to put on the table to get a skill or two? Is this something that you think could be effective?
That is something where South Africa really lags behind. We are often told that South Africans are creative. We were so agile during COVID, but overall our entrepreneurship skills and the volume and the number of entrepreneurs is actually quite low when you look at other emerging markets or upper middle income countries. For us, that is something that needs to change. We need to have these discouraged workers have the opportunity to learn skills to be able to be entrepreneurs, because then they not only create jobs for themselves, but eventually they add another job and another job as their business grows. Yeah. That's where we're going to get all the job creation from.
Here's an interesting data that was sent by the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor this morning, saying that the number of people who actually are not starting businesses because they fear failure has actually gone up. Do you think that we have a lot more of these people sitting in the South African workforce, and those that are discouraged who say, oh, I'd love to start a business, yet I'm fearful, I'm seeing other businesses go down, mine is likely to go that way? What are your thoughts around this, Christie?
That's definitely a major concern, because even if you come from nothing and you start that business and it fails and you sort of get back to square one, you might be sitting with debt. You might be sitting with people knocking on your door, because in the process of wanting to create that business, you had to get finance, you had to get credit. So the business has closed down, but you still have those responsibilities. I can completely understand that South Africans are concerned with that. And it's part of the story about why entrepreneurship is challenging. It's the question about finance, the ability to manage money, financial literacy, all of those things combined to say that we've got lots of people that need jobs, but very few of them actually have the ability to self-create those jobs.
Yeah. In the midterm, this is as we wrap up, Christie, in the midterm budget, there are projections that the economic rate is likely to climb up by 1.8%. However, the private sector is so confident that, in fact, we could see a 3% increase in the economic growth rate. How likely are we to get this 3%, and what dent would it do to the unemployment figure, given that skills are so scarce and we have a lot of unemployable people in the market?
So at the moment, the amount of economic growth forecasts for this year, they're so wide. Some are very pessimistic, some are very optimistic. We really just don't know how good it's going to be this year, to be honest. The latest economic growth number from last year, the third quarter, was about 0.5%, which is almost nothing. Now we're putting our hopes on 1.5%, 2%, even 3%, which the president said. We need real progress on the ground, and the budget speech is going to be very influential in setting the scene for the rest of the year in terms of what's government doing with investment, taxes, etc., etc. So for us to get to a fast growth rate, 2%, 3%, this budget speech needs to be on point. It needs to create confidence. It needs to show us how government and private sector will be working together.
Christie, thank you for your views. I've been speaking to Christie Viljoen. He's a senior economist from PwC.